one little shred of hope that they had in a weird sort of way came when Deshaun Watson was sued for sexual assault the Monday after the first Sunday of the season. Because the way that the contract was written, the way the personal conduct policy operates, and given that the NFL began investigating this new claim, which had a different level of allegation, when you make it sexual assault, that's a bigger deal than what he was already suspended for a couple of years ago. Some Browns fans were like, hey, wait a minute. Are you telling me if he gets suspended for this and he didn't disclose in writing the possibility of having a claim made against him by that person and he gets suspended for it, the Browns can void his remaining guarantees and get out from under this ball and chain contract? That lingered for a while. And Tony Busby, who represents the individual who made the accusations against Deshaun Watson, said, ready to meet with the league. And then it got real quiet. And the day before we found out that the case had been settled, I turned back to somebody in the NBC viewing room. I can't remember who I said it to. It was Matthew Berry or Fred Gaudelli. And I said, I got a feeling this case has been settled. And it was. And here's the value in a settlement like that. And I'm mentioning it today because yesterday we heard the same thing as it relates to new Packers kicker Brandon McManus. When you have an allegation made against you that activates a personal conduct policy investigation, that relies upon the cooperation of the person who has made the allegation because the league has no subpoena power, no way to compel anyone to cooperate. When those cases get resolved and they're saying nothing more about it, what that means is there's a confidentiality provision in the agreement. Those are very common. This whole process is very common and normal in the practice of law. Somebody gets sued, it gets settled. And in almost every case, except when the defendant is like a public body and they're subject to Freedom of Information Act requests and they can't have a confidentiality provision. Other than that, they want confidentiality in there. Usually it's because, like if it's a big company, we don't want people to know that all you have to do is sue us and we're going to cough up money. When it deals with sensitive accusations that could lead to problems for the individual, you want to be sure, problems unrelated to the lawsuit, you want to be sure that that person who is receiving the settlement check, part of what that person is giving back in exchange for it beyond waiving the claims, they're sacrificing their ability to speak on it. It short circuits the NFL's investigative process because now the person who sued Deshaun Watson and the two flight attendants who sued Brandon McManus alleging assault and sexual assault on a flight when he was with the Jaguars, they've been compensated for whatever they experienced, and part of what they're being compensated for is their silence. The NFL can't get to the bottom of it. The NFL can't get to the truth. So here's my question. Here's how this came to be. I'll give you a little glimpse inside the sausage-making process. The NFL's having a conference call at 12:15 Eastern today for the media. Talk about the ownership meetings and the ongoing international series that continues this week with Jaguars Patriots. And so I try to think of a question. Like if they call on me, you use the Zoom feature, you put your hand up. If they call on me, what will my question be? And I thought about this question and I thought, you know what, screw it. Maybe I'll ask it later. I'm going to go ahead and plant the flag now and raise this point. Will the NFL do something about this? Because it seems too convenient for somebody who's sued, activates personal conduct policy mechanism. Let's settle the case. Let's get a confidentiality agreement, and I don't have to worry about getting suspended. Will the NFL say, for example, if you enter into a settlement agreement with a confidentiality provision after we've begun an investigation, if you enter into that, the mere fact that you've entered into it is going to be viewed as a presumption that you did something for which you could be suspended, that the allegations against you are true. Because, look, the settlement agreement always says that the person who's entering into it is denying any and all liability or wrongdoing or other accusations. But in a case like this, where it becomes a business transaction, Deshaun Watson had $92 million riding on whether or not this latest lawsuit would morph into a suspension. We don't know and we never will know how much he paid. But if you're looking at losing $92 million, you're going to pay a significant amount of money, common sense would tell us, to ensure that you can pull the plug on the investigation and keep the league from ever talking to the individual. Maybe the NFL would say before you can settle the case, we have to interview the individual. Maybe the NFL will say you just can't settle the case until after we've had a chance to do our full investigation, whether we talk to the individual or others or whatever. So I guess my question is the NFL just going to allow this simple little workaround? Somebody gets sued, NFL sparks a personal conduct policy investigation, and then the individual settles the case, gets confidentiality as part of it, and prevents the NFL from doing a meaningful investigation. I mean, that's the flaw with any company, private company that wants to have its own in-house justice system. The only people you can force to talk are the people who you pay. Anyone else is exempt, and it creates inconsistent results. You'll have individuals who aren't disciplined, aren't suspended, don't have to go through the full-blown process because the individual is making the accusation won't cooperate. And then you'll have someone like Ezekiel Elliott. And I'm not saying that he did nothing wrong. All I'm saying is in his case, there was a motivated alleged victim who was interviewed by the NFL 6 or 7 times, never sued him, but went that route, fully cooperated with the league, told her story. The end result was Ezekiel Elliott was suspended 6 games. It leads to results that you can't really reconcile, and it all comes down to the NFL not having the power to get to the bottom of the case because Deshaun Watson settled, because Brandon McMahon is settled. I just think the league needs to do something. And it's not for me to decide what they should do, but the current system makes it too easy for a guy to avoid potential suspension by simply settling the case and buying silence, because that's part of what you buy. You buy a release of the claims, and I hate to make it that transactional, but it is. I've been sued. It becomes a business proposition. I'm buying a release of the claims by settling the case, and I'm buying silence that's going to keep me out of trouble. And, you know, the other side of it, it creates, and I don't want to use the word extortion because too many people throw that word around in this context, but man, it creates an easy formula for somebody to leverage the situation into a settlement that they might not deserve. That maybe the facts are vague. Maybe the thing that the player is being accused of didn't really go down the way that the accuser is saying. If you're the player, you can't afford to take that risk. You got a way to write a check and buy silence and not have to worry about losing your career, livelihood, the money that goes along with it. All right, just something to keep an eye on, and maybe I'll ask that question later today. They probably won't answer it, but it's something that I think we need to be watching because it undermines the whole process if you can settle these cases and move on. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.